Welcome to Back to Your Roots Genealogy Chat Group. My name is Lisa Layton. I am a library associate here at Mentor Public Library, Lake Branch. Today, we're going to discuss fan club and name variations to help guide us in our genealogical research. What drives a genealogical search? Well, we have primary sources of information and we have secondary sources of information for our search. Usually, we use the primary sources. That is your immediate family, like your children, last names, birth dates, and death dates. Secondary sources for information for a search might include the fan club or distant family, first name only, different variations of a last name, dates around an event, and occupation. And here I have a nifty graphic of a red car and an orange car. You can see our persons. We have the primary in green and the secondary person in orange. Usually, like the red car, we have the primary sources of information driving the car, and the secondaries take a back seat. Well, in this search, we're going to reverse that. And so our secondary sources are going to drive, and the green person there is going to take the back seat. This is the example I'm going to show you today that helped me break down a brick wall using secondary sources of information. And this is my ancestry fact sheet. And you can see here with the arrow to your left, I'm going to focus on the arrival of my great-great-grandfather, Christian Kenzig. You can see him on the top here. Yes, I did use deep nostalgia to modify the picture and it came out great. Underneath Christian, I have his passenger list. He immigrated with Elizabeth Wagner, his wife. He arrived in the United States August 4th, 1854. He's around 20 years old. He's from Switzerland. His port of departure is Le Havre, France. Destination, United States of America. Port of arrival, New York, New York. On the ship, the Regulator. And this is my brick wall question. When did Christian Kenzig become a naturalized citizen of the United States? When and where? Genealogical search methods used today: fan club, name variations, occupation, location, and address. And here to the right, we have the 1900 United States Federal Census for Christian Kenzig and the 1910 one also. These censuses are gems because they tell us when our ancestors immigrated. We have the year and if they were naturalized. And we could see Christian here immigrated in 1854, and yes, he is naturalized with the NA. And just a side note here, if you look, our name variations are already starting to take effect here. In the gray bars, you could see Hengig and Kenzie. So I take this information and I go to Family Search, Ohio County Naturalization Records, 1800 to 1977. I put in my information, first and last name, he's from Switzerland, a year, range for his birth, and I hit search. And guess what I get? A big old goose egg, 0 hits. I was using my primary sources. So I'm going to do a little homework here before I try this search again. And let's look at the top here, the orange bar. I have 3 variations of the name that I'm used to seeing. We have Kenzig with the umlaut over the A. We have Kenzig. When Christian came to America, he drops the umlaut and he puts an AE in his name. And finally, we have Kenzig. And that's the Americanized name that is still used today. The first thing I did was make a list of name variations. And as you can see, there's a lot of misspellings and different variations. These are some examples from censuses, tax list, passenger list, births, directories, and miscellaneous records. Take the time to write down these variations for your own research. It makes a big difference, and it will change how you research. Next, I go to a script translator. You can Google this and put in your origin, your country of origin, to see what works for you. I'm using a German script, Suderlein, and I typed in Christian Kanzig. I want to see what his name would look like if he spelled it or signed it. Underneath, I do have his signed signature, and you can clearly see he still uses the umlaut in 1882. So next I go to umlaut school. Once Germans cross the border to non-German speaking country, umlauts are usually transcripted to become more QWERTY compatible. The official transcriptions for countries that don't use umlauts are as follows. You can see the U here to the left with the umlaut on top turns into UE. And we have the O with the umlaut turn into an OE. A with an umlaut turns into AE, and the Ezert, which looks like the funny B, turns into SS. Talk about secondary sources. This is a probate record for my great-great-grandfather, Frederick Richter. And I actually found Christian's signature on his probate record. It turns out that Christian became the guardian of my great-grandfather, Jacob Richter. There's a picture of Jacob and his wife, Emma. Emma is Christian's daughter. So he became his guardian, and eventually they did get married. Underneath here, right in the middle, you can see the county clerk dropped the umlaut and went with the AE. But Christian still signs his name kind of like the old German script way, and definitely with the umlaut still in place. After this, I took a little time to research the script itself. And here on the top, I'm using the Omniglot, an online encyclopedia of writing systems and languages. And then I started to look into German pronunciations. In the orange box, I have the original spelling of Kanzig. And then underneath, I figured out what it might sound like if I had a German accent. So it almost is like a Kanzig. The last tool that I'm going to put into my tool belt is location and occupation. Christian had 2 locations here in Cleveland, originally 404 Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Ohio. Eventually he moves to 408 Broadway, Cleveland, Ohio. And this, I have to take in consideration the great address change in Cleveland. There was one in 1868 and one in 1906. In these parameters, 408 Broadway falls in between that. So we're okay on that front. Occupation, he was a brewery owner, a brewmaster, a teamster, and a horse trader proprietor. So finally, I'm ready to go back to the naturalization records and do another search, but this time I'm using secondary sources. First name, Christian, no last name. I know, I did get lucky. It's not a Johanna. And his birthplace, Switzerland. Birth year, 1828 to 1835. So I did squeeze that up a bit and close that in. I'm going to guess that he was naturalized in Cuyahoga. And how do I know that? Well, there's tax records from 1859 showing that he did own some property. So I'm pretty confident that he is here in Cuyahoga. I did broaden up the naturalization year of 1850 to 1900. You know, there was a civil war going on. So my guess is Christian does not want to become naturalized during that time period. In fact, I'm going to guess that he's probably going to wait a few years afterwards to make sure everything is okay before he goes ahead and naturalizes himself. So I hit the search button and I come up with 392 results. And this is where I have a confession to make. Originally, 7 months before I tried this technique, I went through the KAs and KEs in the index cards in this records, and I came up empty-handed. So this time, 392 is a drop in the bucket, and I'm ready to get started. I come up with several names. 3 of them, you can see them in red, immediately they get dismissed. It turns out that they came way after Christian. I'm looking for that 1854 date or afterwards. Christian was pretty well established in Cleveland by 1860 and the 1870s. So these people, I'm going to X out. That leaves 4 gentlemen left. Christian Kuhn, 1882. Christian Kenrich, 1876. Christian Cusick, 1876. Christian Kuhn, 1882. And take a note at the 2 dates, 1876 and 1882. On the right here, I do have the index cards for you to see. We have Christian, volume 9, page 103. Christian Kenrich, volume 11, page 165. Here are the actual records. And to the left here, we have Christian Kuhn, an alien native of Switzerland. And if you look right away, he says he first arrived April of 1879. That's clearly way past the time that I'm looking for. So that leaves me with 1 record only left in this secondary search, and that's Christian Kenrich. We're going to look here, volume 11, page 165. And when I get to page 165, we have the Christian Cusick. It turns out that there's misspellings on both documents, index card and document itself. I'm going to read to you this document. In the probate court, Cuyahoga County, Ohio, November 6, 1876, Christian Cusick, an alien and native of Switzerland, a free white person, and proved to the satisfaction of the court that he made in the Northern District Court of Ohio County of Cuyahoga more than 2 years ago the requisite declaring of intention to become a citizen of the United States, and also at that time came Henry Marhoffer, and being duly sworn and deposed and say that the Curich has resided in the United States for 5 years, last passed that he has resided 1 year, last passed in the state of Ohio. And during that time, he has behaved as a man of good moral character, attached to the principles of the Constitution of the United States, and well disposed to the good order and happiness of the same. It's pretty awesome, isn't it? But this necessarily doesn't prove anything for my brick wall. The name variations are there. I'm thinking about the pronunciations that I looked at in the past. That's very well a possibility too, that it's the right person, 1876. But there's really not enough evidence. And this is where I'm going to zoom in on the witness. And that would be Henry Marhoffer. He's my new genealogical best friend for this search. So I do a directory search, and just like anybody that works at a library, we have a thing when we put away books. We look 5 before and 5 after to put the book in the right place. I'm going to use that same technique here for my directory searches. When originally I looked in 1876, my friend Henry here, he was at Cherry Street. So I decided to broaden out. I went to 1880 and 1882, and this is what I found. Christian Kenzit at Residence 408 Broadway, and Henry Marhoffer, Mason at 424 Broadway. Underneath that, we have Henry Jr., a wagon maker, Residence 390 Broadway. It turns out Christian sits right in between the two. They're neighbors, and no doubt they're business associates. Christian having been in the horse trade and teamster, which happens to be wagons and hauling materials, Henry Jr. being a wagon maker. Woohoo, it's a score. Way to go, Henry. Thank you. Just to make things concrete, I decided to go to the 1880 census. And as you can see, a couple pages apart, I have the Marhoffers and Christian. They're living as neighbors, and Christian is in between the two. I hope this example helps you with your own research. Take the time to think about what research methods is going to drive the car. A combination of name variations, understanding script and your ancestors, maybe pronunciations of their language, and location and occupation help solve brick walls in your family tree. Good luck breaking down your family tree brick walls. Thank you so much.